In this video, I'm gonna share my short user experience with the Sony A1 camera. Hi guys, my name is Matti Sulanto. I'm a photographer. And in this video, I'm gonna share my mini user experience with the Sony A1 camera body. This video is something that I did not plan, or I did not plan to review this camera anytime soon. But a couple of days ago I got a message from Sony Finland asking if I'd like to try their A1 camera. And what am I supposed to say? Of course I wanted to try their $7,000 top-of-the-line Pro camera body. But unfortunately I had very limited amount of time with this camera, so I didn't even attempt to make a full review because this camera is so packed with features that it would take probably at least a couple of weeks of using this camera to learn all the features and to appreciate all of them. But I still wanted to make this video to share my initial first impressions with this camera, and I thought you might like to hear that. And I'd like to thank Sony Finland for letting me borrow this camera even for this short period of time. And I hope I can get back to this camera at some point and use it properly and learn a bit more about this fantastic and a little bit expensive camera body. And to be clear, this is not the first time I'm using a Sony camera. I have owned the original A7R and the A7R Mark II as well, and in the past I have reviewed many Sony cameras, so I have some Sony experience from the past, so I kind of had some expectations with this camera. But the first thing you have to be really impressed with is the truly compact size of this camera, and when you think about all the features that they managed to cram into this tiny camera body. There is of course a full frame sensor, but there's also IBIS in here and a 9.4 million dot viewfinder, which is really awesome and the best viewfinder I have ever seen. And this can shoot 8K video up to 30 frames per second, 4K video up to 120 frames per second, and it can shoot 50 megapixel raw pictures at 30 frames per second. Listen to this. You're probably going to need another hard drive for all these 50 megapixel raw files. There is pretty much every feature packed in here that you can imagine. And I really appreciate the compact size. Traditionally all these hardcore professional cameras have been big, bulky and heavy, and when I look at some rumors, it looks like at least Canon still thinks that a professional camera has to be this really big and chunky thing, and I get it. In some situations it's of course an advantage if the camera has a proper grip, also vertical grip, and if you're using really long heavy lenses and so on. So maybe you want more substantial body than this, but you can also put a vertical grip on this and then it becomes like one of those big and heavy and chunky cameras. But without the grip, this is like normal camera, and you can take this anywhere with you, and this doesn't look like a flashy, really expensive top-of-the-line camera. It's pretty modest looking and it doesn't draw unnecessary attention to itself. And when you mount a compact lens on this camera, this becomes almost like a light travel kit, if you will. This lens that I have on this camera now is the Sony G50mm f2.5, which is an excellent compact prime lens. Most of the pictures I shot on this camera were just some casual pictures because, like I said, this came really unexpectedly to me and I was not prepared to do any proper shoot with this camera. But I also had a chance to use the brand new Tamron 150 to 500 millimeter tele zoom lens, which when I'm recording this is not even available yet. I believe it becomes available on the 3rd of June this year, 2021. But I'll get back to that user experience in my Tamron review video because that was a little bit interesting experience and I want to double check a few things before I say anything more about that. But I'll get back to this and the Tamron zoom later in another video. My casual shooting experience with this camera was of course very nice. The viewfinder, like I said, is gorgeous and it's big. And you can zoom the size of the viewfinder picture so you can also see it properly if you wear glasses like I do. And one of the nicest things on this camera is the electronic shutter, which is so fast that you really don't need the mechanical shutter at all. There are probably some situations where you might prefer the mechanical shutter. For example, you get a little bit faster flash sync speed with the mechanical shutter. But you can pretty much shoot everything with just the electronic shutter, which of course is very nice because the camera can also be totally silent when you use electronic shutter. And there's no viewfinder blackout even with the mechanical shutter. And that of course is very practical and very convenient when you are shooting. You see all the time whatever is going on, and if you follow a moving target or subject, it's easy to follow because the viewfinder never blacks out. And despite of the really compact size, the control layout is really clear and easy to use and it never feels cramped. And everything is right at your fingertips. And of course this is highly customizable and you can make this your camera if you care to spend a little bit of time with the custom menu. And talking about the menus, this has the new Sony menu system, which is beautiful and very clear to use. The previous Sony menu system was a mess and it was about time they did something about it. And this menu system is very logical and it's very easy to find whatever you are looking for in the menus. And there are a lot of items here on this menu, but they're still relatively easy to find once you get just used to it and realize how many or what kind of features there are available. There's not a whole lot to complain about this camera, except maybe the price. I mean, $7,000, or over here in Europe, 7,500 euros, because our prices have the sales tax included. So it's a lot of money, except for the Leica users, of course. They will just shrug and ask, what are you fussing about? 7 grand is just about the right price for a camera body. But you can get 2 really nice camera bodies and a couple of lenses for the same money. So it is a lot of money for a camera body. But anyway, if you can afford that, you are going to have a very nice, enjoyable camera body. And there's also one more thing I have to complain about. And that is the shutter angles and waveform monitor for video shooters. This camera does not have those, even for this price. And if you don't shoot video, you might be asking what's the big deal? But if you shoot video, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The waveform is arguably the best way to check your exposure for video, and shutter angle keeps your shutter speed correct every time. Even if you change frame rates back and forth, you always have the correct shutter speed if you use the shutter angle instead of shutter speed. And it's hard to imagine why they are not included even for this kind of price and in this camera where Sony packed everything they could. Maybe this A7 design team has never heard of shutter angles or waveforms, I don't know, but I think they definitely should be included in this camera. Even the humble Lumix S5 camera has those, and you can buy 3 Lumix S5 camera bodies for the price of this, and then you can buy one really nice prime lens with the leftover money. So please, Sony designers, please give us a firmware update with the shutter angles and waveform monitors for this camera. But of course, in general, this is a very enjoyable camera to use, and for this kind of a price, it pretty much has to be an enjoyable experience. But before I'm finished with this video, I have one more thing for you. I'm planning a workshop here in Finland in August 2022 with a good friend of mine, Peter Forsgaard. And there's going to be more info on that workshop on this channel very soon. So if you'd like to join in, or if you're interested to join in, that's another reason to keep following this channel and watching my videos. And also check out my zine project and order one for yourself. The second issue is on its way already. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.